What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today. What's cracking, what's cracking, what's cracking? Welcome back to another episode in my series that I'm running, Top 10 Role Players. My top 10 role players of all time, history of the league. All right. And today we have Danny Ainge. So just to recap where we are in our standings. Number 10, I had Steve Kerr. Number 9, I had Bruce Bowen. Number 8, I had Lamar Odom. And now, number 7, all time, the man, the myth, the legend, Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge was a 6'5", 190-pound shooting guard. All right. Ainge came out of BYU, was drafted in 1981, second round with the 31st overall pick. And as many of you know, he was drafted by the beloved Boston Celtics. He had a good lengthy career. He played from 1981 to 1995. And just to note, he actually had a coaching career and some roles in varying other positions within the NBA circles. As a player, he played from 81 to 89 with the Celtics, 89 to 90 with the Sacramento Kings, 1990 to 1992 with the Portland Trail Blazers, and then 92 to 1995 with the Phoenix Suns. And all of that, Danny Ainge was a two-time NBA champion, and a lot of people don't know this part. In 1988, he was actually an NBA All-Star. All right. As far as his career NBA statistics, overall, he has just north of 11,900 points for an 11.5 point per game average. Just a tick under 4,200 assists for 4 assists per game. And 1,133 steals for 1.1 steals per game. Throughout Danny Ainge's NBA career, you know, he was one of those snub-nosed, right? Snub-nosed, pit bullish, you know, hard-nosed player that, you know, wouldn't have a problem getting dirty, getting gritty, getting in other players' faces, opponents, you know, sticking up for his team, sticking up for himself. He's the type of guy you really wanted on his team. And one thing I had read about Danny Ainge that I did not know before researching him more, before doing this video, was that he infuriated his teammates by being a ball hog at times. Now, I'm not labeling Danny Ainge a ball hog, but this is just something I read. I don't know if any of you guys that watched him play throughout his career can verify. Was this an actual thing? Did he sometimes infuriate his teammate with, you know, his shot selection or choosing when to shoot the ball as opposed to, you know, making what they would call the right play, things like that? Let me know. That's something I read. Danny Ainge had huge value, very, very huge value for the teams he played with. Obviously, like I said, won 2 championships with the Boston Celtics, but was a very integral piece as well, especially for the Portland Trail Blazers and Phoenix Suns and the success they had with the franchise, and even with the Sacramento Kings, in which he would have a more prominent role there. We'll talk about that later. But he could play both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively, was very, 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 very sound. His game, I love Danny Ainge's game. I really do. He could do a lot of things. And there were times when Bird would go to the bench and Danny Ainge would be the guy to make sure that the Boston Celtics can still get points up on the board. And even through his playmaking, not just his scoring. I've seen Danny Ainge run beautiful pick and rolls, run beautiful pick and pops, playing with the ball in his hand, getting it to Parrish, you know, getting it to Cornbread, you know, getting it to Mikel. I've seen him do it. and beautiful passes. He could put the ball on the floor, left hand, right hand, even finish the left hand on the right hand side. Didn't have a problem face up dribbling in front of his defender and getting past him and blowing by him aggressively at that. He could put the ball on the floor, pull up, shoot, mid range. Parrish was phenomenal, a phenomenal 3-point shooter. Catch and shoot as well. Even sometimes step into it. Coming off the screens, curl, shoot the three. But especially in that mid-range, he was an assassin. Danny Ainge had a nice stroke. Go look at his form. Dude had a nice stroke, and he was not bashful to shoot at all. And they would definitely run sets and run plays for Danny Ainge. At times he'd do a lot of movement, and similarly how you would see, Klay Thompson, a Rip Hamilton come around those screens in the mid-range game, in rhythm, catch the ball, rise and shoot. He would feast heavily on that. Even had a nice pump fake game, man. Catch it, defender on him. Of course, they're expecting him to shoot because he's a marksman in that mid-range. Pump fake, get him almost every time. Jumping, pull up, one step, shoot. Or get to the cup. Whatever made the most sense at the time for him and the team. Like the dude he had a knack for putting the ball in the basket. And like I said, back in those days, it wasn't all loosey-goosey with the ball handling. The dribbling rules, the ball handling rules were a lot stricter back then than they are now. And I've seen video of Danny Ainge just freestyle dribbling. And I was like, damn, this dude really has some nice handles. But unfortunately, he couldn't do half the stuff he was doing in the league back then. But he could really dribble the ball, man. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Playmaking was good. Scoring was good. And the defense was sound. Even on switches. I've seen him get nasty and get physical off switches. And he was clearly at a mismatch. But he applied great pressure to the player with the ball. Phenomenal. Danny Ainge is definitely one of those role players that could have been capable of doing more, but obviously played his role. And by having that ability, to unlock, it allowed opportunities for him to have big shining moments when his number was called, as opposed to times when it wasn't. So it's a luxury to have players like that coming off the bench, knowing it's like, hey, this guy could really give you 18, 19, 20 points per game. So we know that he's going to deliver on a consistent basis for the 11, 12 points that we may be asking from him. You know what I mean? It's so nice to have role players like that. Fun stat about Danny Ainge. He finished in the top 5 in three-pointers made in 5 different seasons. And he added 172 threes in the playoffs. He also has a 9.6 playoff win shares, including 2.7 in 1986 alone. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Coming into the league, especially, Danny Ainge was one of those role players that at times seemingly be back and forth, in and out of starting positions, as a bench player, role player, or starter role player. Right? For example, as a Boston Celtics, his rookie year, he barely played. But in his sophomore season, he managed to be a starter. But unfortunately, in his third year, he got reduced back to being a bench player, for lack of a better word, reduced. But yeah, in favor of another player starting ahead of him, Gerald Henderson, right? But in 1984-1985 season, Danny Ainge made it back to the starting lineup, made it back to the gig, still a role player, after they traded Gerald Henderson. So now he's out of the picture. And he had a great season as a starting role player, with almost 13 points per game and throwing 5 assists. I mean, not too shabby. Not too shabby. But from that point on, with his tenure with the Boston Celtics, he would pretty much remain a starter, still a role player, but a damn good one. And
really, he was even a star. Oh no, yeah, he was even a starter after he finished his career with the Celtics. He was a starter for two more seasons with the Sacramento Kings, but with an expanded role. Something to note with that championship team with the Boston Celtics. I think it was the 85, 86 season. Yeah, one of the all-time great. Yeah, that team. One of the greatest teams, arguably the greatest team ever assembled. Ainge had a phenomenal season, especially shooting the free throws, a tick under 90%, and was also, that same season, also was third in three-point shooting in the entire league at 44%. All right. Now, he had shot 90% before, but it wasn't that season. But collectively, this was a really good season for him shooting the basketball. The year after that, he made 148 three-pointers, which at the time shattered the previous NBA single season record of 92. Absolutely demolished it. He was a sharp shooter, and he could shoot the three ball and in many ways, right? He just wasn't just camping there at the 3-point line. He could get you to it several different ways, promise you. It was also that season, the 86-87 season, where he made his first and only NBA All-Star game, appearing as a Boston Celtics role player, but made the All-Star game. And this was kind of like a courtesy of being a very important cog and a very successful team. We've seen that happen before. Players that, this guy, if the team wasn't doing as good as they were, nobody would have been looking at him to make the All-Star game. But it's we've seen that happen in other seasons where it's like, all right, coach is voting this guy in. He's having a good season, a really good season as a role player, and this team has a phenomenal record at this point in the season. It happens. It happens. It happens. Danny Ainge was a very, 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 given his skill set and how he fit with that Boston Celtics team, that he had that hive mindset, passing the ball, running the fast breaks. Everybody knew where everybody was. Everybody knew what everybody was going to do. It's incredible watching that Boston Celtics team play, how fluid they are. But his defense, his shot making ability, and even his playmaking ability, and patching holes where the Celtics needed them patched. He was an invaluable, very, very important piece to them winning two championships. Very important. And as deep as that team was, he was a big difference maker. And when he was on the floor, you could feel his impact. No question about it. The 89-90 season, Danny Ainge was then traded to the Sacramento Kings. Now, like I said, I touched on this briefly. At this point, he became a starter, but also it was during this tenure with the Sacramento Kings where Danny Ainge wouldn't be so much of a role player anymore, but I thought it was important to bring up just to show how good this guy really is and how he was playing a role to fit within the confines of a team. Sometimes you have these players that have so much potential, but they're being held back by a leash, unlocked at times, and then put them away. And we just need you to scale it back and do what we asked you to do. He was one of those players. Because with the Kings, now his full potential was unlocked as far as individuality, and he could shine more. And that proves his worth. And it also shows his sacrifice. With the Sacramento Kings, Danny Ainge averaged 20 points per game and almost 7 assists in that partial season that he played post-trade that he had with the Kings. He even had a 45-point game with the Kings, which he had a 45-point game before with the Boston Celtics, but very different this time around, being a more prominent piece for the Kings. Following his first full season with the Kings, Danny Ainge would become a free agent and would then sign with the Portland Trail Blazers. And it was in the 91-92 season, they actually made the NBA Finals, and that was where who was Michael Jeffrey Jordan, and Danny Ainge and the Blazers would fall to MJ and the Bulls. Now, important to note is after his Sacramento Kings tenure, now we're with the Portland Trail Blazers. Now he's no longer that prominent piece, that starting piece. Now Danny Ainge is back to being a well-defined role player off the bench. So his production dipped significantly from his Sacramento Kings run where he's scoring all his points. Now he's back to, 10, 11 points per game, playing a role with the Trailblazers. But again, it shows you his value. Acquire Danny Ainge, fit him into the team, very important piece, brings a lot to the organization. NBA Finals appearance. He was an important piece. All right. Following that, Danny Ainge will go on to play with the Phoenix Suns and much of the same. Role player, playing a role, but look, a very important piece. As these players tend to move from team to team to team, and they see these teams having success, they're like, hey, I want that guy. Success comes with him. He gets it. All right. Guess what? Go back to another NBA Finals with the Phoenix Suns, led by Charles Barkley. But guess who's there waiting at the finish line? Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Falls again to Michael Jordan and the Bulls. I think Mike was just getting him back for all those losses when he was on the Celtics. But it's crazy to think, if Michael Jordan doesn't exist, Danny Ainge probably has 4 championship rings as a very important role player. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. Another fun little stat I forgot to mention earlier when I was laying all that stuff out. In 1994, Danny Ainge became the second player ever to hit 900 three-point shots in NBA history. Ainge retired in 1994-1995 season, or after that season he retired. And at the time of his retirement, he had the highest personal winning percentage in NBA history among players with at least 1,000 career games, edging out Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 69% to 68.8%. So that shows you this man's value to a franchise. Where he goes, winning follows. Or maybe winning existed to a degree, but he would add much value and provide much impact to the bench and to being a supporting piece to the players that are leading the ball club. Danny Ainge was a solid player, both ends of the floor. And I would love to have Danny Ainge on my team. More than just an energy guy, more than just a catch and shoot shooter. He could do a bevy of things, and he could do a bevy of things well. And you see what he could do as a starter and as a prominent figure. Just saying. Salute to Danny Ainge, man. You guys let me know what you think about it. Obviously, I didn't watch Danny Ainge play his whole career. I was a young buck or not born. So if you guys can bless me with more knowledge and more context and more stories about Danny Ainge, I would love to hear it. I do my best to do my research and talk intelligently about it, but I don't know as much as the people that actually got to watch this guy play. It's not comparable, but I do recognize him, and I know what he's worth, and I know what he did, generally speaking, and I have to talk about it and acknowledge his greatness as a role player. All right, y'all take care, y'all be blessed, and I catch you on the next one. We out, baby.